I think graffiti is the push and the pull between art and culture.
Graffiti can be a lot more than just ugly vandalism. It might also be a death trap.
Art or vandalism? A world-renowned event that attracts thousands from around the world.
So I'm Rus Gant, that's R-U-S-G-A-N-T. I'm an artist, engineer, and on the academic side, very much a teacher, and with a lot of emphasis on history. I was walking by the alley and I thought, oh, that's interesting, and I went into the alley and I realized immediately this was sort of an American version of what I'd been seeing in Europe, but quite different. It was a sort of chance encounter adding into something that I was already interested in. And being a photographer, I started photographing it. And I began to see how the artists who were working on the wall dealt with the rest of the wall. So you end up with the muralists, the people who are actually making pictorial art. You have the taggers who are basically working with lettering and with tagging structures. And then another sort of group, which I call the ornamentalists. These are guys like Stretch, who does these little thumb people. And he basically makes these little figures that sort of stick out behind the other art. And that's all he does, is find little corners where he can kind of put his little people.
It's been there for probably almost a year. One particular little head. It's just enough out of reach. Almost no one does this little panel here.
And then another aspect of my interest in technical photography and shooting objects, small things, was macro photography. And so I literally walked up to the wall to see how close I could get with the camera. And I realized I could get down to about 1 to 2 centimeters square. And as soon as I saw what was in the lens, it was fascinating. The closer I got, the more interesting it was. I began to see rivers and valleys and craters on the moon, star fields, where all of the paint was intersecting, that the spray paint would come out with these just billions of little dots would hit the wall, but then somebody else would have paint that would run, and the paint would flow down over the dots, or the dots would go on top of the paint. And all of a sudden, these abstract expressionist paintings began to emerge that were really interesting.
Nice because they persist and they peek out behind other pieces, and they're nicely abstract, bizarre faces and people looking to be in distress. You can see them running right across this border here. Yeah, it just appeared one day. I've never seen him come back since. Red Ghost, I've seen him before. He's here periodically. So you're the Red Ghost?
Yes.
Nice.
And in fact, one of the things that's most interesting to me is which pictures last the longest, which are most resistant to being tagged on top of. And is it just because of the quality of the art? Is it the subject of the art? Where it's positioned on the wall? It's very interesting. Some pieces will last for a long time and people won't touch them.
Yeah, go sees. And so there are 5 big, you can see the black rounded piece at the top of his head. So there are 5 large heads. In fact, there's another one still on this side. You can see just his eyes are blacked out on the But they were right after the Celtics won the pennant.
And it's sort of, there's an unwritten rule with, I think, all graffiti, but particularly in the alley, which is you don't want to tag or hit on top of something unless what you're doing is going to be better, right? And that's cool, right? If it's better than what was there before, that's fine. But you don't want to just trash stuff. And that's the other category, and the type of artists are the vandals. And there are people who just come in just to cover and trash what's already there. They don't try and tag, they don't try and make an image, they're just trashing art for the sake of trashing it. Luckily, there are few of them, but it's persistent over time. And it's frustrating. You see somebody work for 6 or 8 hours on a picture, and somebody will come in and literally in 5 minutes destroy it. Not to put a better picture, but just because they can destroy it. And that's like, oh, that's a dynamic that's really painful, I think.
The paint was beginning to peel off, and literally it came off and sort of, it was soft enough to sort of fold it over, and eventually pulled it out, and it became a big piece of the wall, with literally going all the way back to the origins of the wall, first very paint. So I thought about it and I said, you know what, I'm going to try and save this. So I got a couple of guys and we came around the corner and we went over and we grabbed the pallet jack because this thing was heavy. And it took almost 4 of us to lift it. I think it weighed about 400 pounds of just pure paint. So I put it on the pallet jack, and Morris, who's the guy who owns the buildings, happened to be here. And I asked him, I said, you got a place where we can stash this? He said, we can put it over here, right into this. This is the back of his old store. And it's lying on the floor right in there. You see the chunk? And on one side, it's the original wall, and on the other side, it was the last paint on the wall before they stripped it. So it literally covered the entire history. And this piece that's lying on the floor there, it's about maybe half, 3/4 of an inch thick. And it's got to weigh 300-400 pounds. So Morris let me stash it there until we could figure out what to do with it. And it's been there now for, I'm not even sure, it's been there for a few years now, actually. But my idea was that if you sandwiched it between 2 pieces of plexiglass, you could then stand it up and you could then walk around and see both sides of it. And it would be a nice piece if you were doing an exhibit on the alley where you had photographs or films or whatever, to have this freestanding sculpture, which was sort of part of the original wall. So you'd see it, you never know what its history was just by looking at it lying there.
Yeah, and it was, I had a realization. It was the first time I saw an RIP graffiti. And it was somebody I knew. And I've probably seen now, over the last 10 years, probably 20 artists have died. Young artists, in their teens, early 20s. A lot of them from overdoses, from, just bad things happening to them. But it was that first time I saw somebody working for several hours on an RIP piece that it really hit me. I never connected those two together, that was a place that you could go, because it's so impermanent, to make a statement about, someone having died. And now I look for those pieces and I really find them interesting. And often they're not the people you would expect who do them. And so I think that was the thing that most affected me, that I didn't see coming. There aren't many places that are dynamically changing, and so it's that the dynamism of it, the change, that you don't get in other art forms. And it happens because of the impermanence, the fact that it's not going to last long. There's a famous thing as an art teacher where you go early in the class with the art, you have everybody draw a picture, and then you go around to each student, you look at it, you criticize it, then you take it and you tear it up, throw it away. No matter how much they liked it, no matter how much work they put into it, you tear it up. To impress upon them the idea that nothing is permanent, the next one's going to be better. Don't stay where you are, keep going forward. I think I'm up around 18,000 images now of the alley. And every day I want to shoot one that I've never shot before.
I don't listen to music. I have
Okay.
no music on my phone. I have no subscription service. I literally don't listen to music.
Okay.
And I don't know, I probably stopped listening.
At all?
At all. I have no music at home. When I'm at home, it's completely silent. I really enjoy the silence. It allows me to work more. I find that the music takes me somewhere else, which is what it's supposed to do. And then you begin to follow the music. I'm much more, have traditionally been more interested in instrumental music. From the 60s, because before in the South, I was out in LA and during the early 60s, and surf rock